Yeah, totally. So I would say our mission statement is kind of threefold. We're a project of People's Action, which is a national organization that works on corporate power and has some very specific campaigns on like Medicare for all, housing for all, and climate change. And we're a project of them. So we specifically are working sort of to try to strengthen the international solidarity movement and the US progressive movement, really to recognize that our global and our local issues are much, much more tied together than we initially think. And just an example of that is how, the US always has money for the war machine, like always, but we don't have money for things that we need here, like desperately. And we certainly, well, we do have money. We make the choice, they make the choice not to. And certainly for global health issues as well, like that is the same kind of tune. And so we're trying to make the argument that to be truly progressive, on all the issues in the United States, like we have to have a global lens and be in solidarity with activists across the world, and recognize that the policies that are being made here in the US are pretty like uniquely violent to other countries, especially countries in the global South. And so that's the other point that I wanted to make, is that the other part of our mission is to really recognize our responsibility as activists and just people in the heart of the US, and recognizing how much imperialistic violence comes out of policies that our government makes in decisions every day. And so really leverage our positions as US taxpayers and people that live here to be in solidarity with people across the world on the fights that they have, and to know that the US is the cause of a lot of it. And so it's our responsibility to push back. And then I think I would finally say that the last kind of point of Justice is Global is to really focus this energy and philosophy, but on material campaigns. So things that we can really like tangibly see. And that's what led us to the global vaccine justice push. We see ourselves like we're part of a coalition of a lot of really great organizations that are public health and global health facing. But we see ourselves as one of the arms that really engages in direct grassroots actions. And we have a base of people across the country who have felt personally impacted by the issue of global vaccine inequity, either from like losing loved ones across the world or being separated from their families and their communities and more these past 2 years. And so we've been working on this issue for the past year, and I'm super happy to get into it and talk more about what our strategies have been and our targets. But yeah, that's kind of the main philosophy of Justice is Global. Yeah, I mean, so at baseline, like right now, there just is stark inequity across our world in who has had access to the vaccine and to mRNA vaccines, and to vaccines that really like life-saving technology that could end the pandemic for all of us across the world. And we see that here in the States, people are preparing to get their fourth shots, while in other countries, there are people who might not even get the shot until late 2023, 2024, like they still haven't even gotten their first shot. So we really have a simple demand on Moderna and on pharma in general to license out their technology. There are hundreds, there's actually over 100 companies in countries in the global South that are ready, like they have that, like they have, everything ready to be able to add to the global vaccine supply. But they're being, stopped by technological barriers and by legal barriers right now. And so that's really why we're focusing on Moderna, because they could license out their technology, but so far they've chosen not to. And I would add that, yeah, Moderna is one of the worst actors in prolonging the pandemic and contributing to vaccine injustice. And we also, as taxpayers, like we funded the production of the vaccine. And so I think like we as taxpayers are also both entitled to and emboldened to fight for the fact that we want it to be open source. Like we want it to be shared with scientists and with countries across the world. And we want it to be something that's truly going to end the pandemic for all of us, because even if, I mean, as a human rights and moral issue, we should want everybody to get a vaccine. But even if that's not the lens, if we don't end the vaccine in other countries, like there's going to still be variants here too. So all of our like fates are really, really interconnected. Like we're really tied together in this way that if we don't focus on, protecting everyone and keeping everyone safe, like none of us are going to be safe. And I think that we really need to get serious about wanting to actually end the pandemic. This has been like prolonged for 2 years by people in power who could have ended it. Like they could have made decisions to end it like a long time ago, and yet we're still in this situation. So there's many barriers. There's also legal barriers. There's also a lot more funding that could be going. But the science and technology piece, and the piece that pharma really could play a big role, in, and why there are why we're like targeting them right now is a piece that really like materially could make a difference. And Moderna could choose to share the science, and that's what we're calling for them to share the science and COVID for all of us. Definitely. I mean, yeah, so we are building, relentless pressure, public pressure. I think they need to hear from people in Boston, people across the country, that we're taxpayers, like this is our vaccine. And so I think that is our biggest leverage point, is that this is our vaccine. And the part that makes it really specific is that Moderna only has headquarters in the United States. So for example, Pfizer has headquarters in other cities across the globe. So there's opportunities for activists to, build that pressure in other countries. Here, it's a little bit different. Like this is the only headquarters that exists. And that means that it really is incumbent on us to show up like in a big way on Thursday. And yeah, I'm excited to talk a little bit more about that too. But yeah, obviously there's a lot of profit. There's a lot of money in big pharma. But we're calling for licensing and manufacturing. And we're not expecting, like them to be like, oh yeah, like out of the goodness of our heart. It's really more about putting the pressure on and letting them know that we need to end the pandemic. And it's actually, going to keep them safer too. So it's incumbent on all of us. Yeah, so Thursday is the day of the shareholder meeting that Moderna is having. And as we just talked about, yeah, there's like billions that was made last year from the pandemic. And I think that we need to call it what it is. It's profiteering off of the fact that people are still dying off of something that was preventable. And so there's 5 new billionaires in Cambridge who literally became billionaires in the past 2 years because of the shares, because of the money that they have in Moderna and like what they're getting back. And so that's one of the reasons that we are really angry. Like we're not a group of people that are joining just to be like, oh yeah, like, it's not like it's not like a thing where it's like, we're just targeting Moderna for fun. Like this is something that is like really personal. It's really deeply felt. There's anger, there's pain, there's loss, there's mourning, and there's also like a lot of power with us. And so on Thursday, we are also going to join, like hundreds of us are going to be there at Galaxy Park for a rally where we're going to hear from, physicians, pharmacists, scientists, like people who have been affected, people who have raised hundreds of thousands of dollars because they had family in India during the COVID surge. Like we're going to hear from a lot of different people who have been impacted in different ways and who are really approaching this from their like lived experience and also their professional experience and their scientific experience, and really calling on Moderna to share the science and end COVID. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely not a one-off action. This is something that's been built over, the past year and a half. There have been other actions at, both targeting pharmaceuticals, but also like really talking more about like Congress funding and Biden administration action. I think that we have been building for the past year. Like last year, we also had kind of like a fundraiser event that really went all to mutual aid efforts in India during the surge. And so I think we are continuing to just build and like meet the moment where we are. For me, like material success would look like a material win, but I think like also it would look like kind of changing the tide of how people are talking about Moderna. I think that they've enjoyed a very like kind of heroic reputation. And I mean, obviously, like it's great that we have vaccines, but also it's not great that this is a very preventable pandemic at this point, and there are decisions that could have been made a long time ago. And because people want to make more money, we're still allowing mass deaths to happen across the world. So that's obviously heinous and inhumane. And so I think like we need to flip the narrative. And for me, that would be a big win out of this too, is if we can just get more people to know the role that Moderna is playing and to know the role that they could be playing in more of a positive way too. And so I think that would be a win, to have more power, to have more people engaged, to just get more people who are paying attention and who know about the issue and want to be involved so that we can keep on organizing. That's also a win. And yeah, we have been organizing. We're going to continue doing so. And I think like the biggest thing we can do is like show how much power we have and how many people are paying attention and are upset, and to keep building those numbers. Um, I mean, you've been so supportive. I think like having people show up on Thursday will be absolutely huge. So having people, maybe take off their, well, we need legal support too, of course, but having some people take off their legal hats and come as protesters and as supporters would be great. And then we are going to continue to organize. And so we will, like, I'm really excited to keep building this partnership and have people be like legal support and be those folks that can like educate us on our rights and make sure that we know like what the risks are, and know like what we should do if a situation gets hairy. So yeah, I'm just looking forward to working together still. And I think the most tangible way you can like really support now outside of what you're already doing is just like turn out people to show up on Thursday as well.